Welcome back to Real Fishing 2, the walkthrough. Today we are heading to the exuberant, liberating south. We are fishing for the giant trevally, otherwise known as GT in this game. By the way, the exuberant, liberating south that they're talking about is the Indian Ocean and the Southern Pacific Ocean, the range of this particular fish. It does live on the reefs in that part of the world. There are some GT fishing operations in Hawaii, but the take is much, much larger in the Indian Ocean, from Australia to South Africa and up to Southeast Asia. This is another one of those levels where you need to go a couple of times to unlock the larger set of fishing gear. Sadly, you don't start with the largest rod, and like other fish, when you are fishing with the small version of the gear, it's harder to turn the larger fish and get them out of the kicking animation. So it is something that you want to go back a couple times and do your usual bit of extra fishing to get the larger rod. We're doing surface lure fishing here, so we are using a popper. The default is the popper. I think there's a few other choices of surface lures you can use for this fish. And you notice that I'm leaving it still. I found that leaving it still is generally about as effective as reeling it in. The movement of the popper doesn't seem to do too much. I did try reeling it in, but I thought if I just leave it sitting there, I would get some bites as well, and I was correct. So just leaving the popper sit out there, moving it a little bit, seemed to get me a few bites. This is an extremely fast hook set fish, and what I mean by that is as soon as it puts that bait in its mouth, you've got to set that hook with the X button. So it can be kind of tricky, and you can actually discover that you can hook them by accidentally hitting the X button to twitch the popper just as the fish is taking it. So you can see that it's very, very fast, and the fish often starts in the air. So you want to set that hook and then let it go. You got to get off of it quickly so that you don't snap the line when the fish takes it, because they make a jumping animation just as they take your bait. So here I'm moving the popper, pulling it in towards me. There may be in this level something to trying to hook a fish close to the boat or close to where you are on these flats. I didn't mess around with it too much. Usually fish start on a run anyway and pull away from the boat pretty quickly, but there might be something to trying to hook them close in, and maybe draw them into you as you're teasing them with the popper. So that fish just went airborne there. And you've got to lay off, because these fish will snap you off pretty easily, especially the larger ones. By the way, what we are looking for is a 3-footer. We're looking for a fish over 3 feet long to pass this giant trevally level. And where that fish just went into the kick animation for a couple times and I was able to pull it out, that's only really possible with the larger rod. On the first couple days of fishing in this level, or the first, I think it was 2 sessions before I unlocked the large rod, it was just very difficult to get a fish turned out. So recommendation is to try to get a couple of fish in the first couple days, earn yourself the upgraded rod, and then take it a little more seriously. The GT is not open all the time. You got to be very careful about the months that you can go GT fishing, so you want to watch your calendar pretty quickly when you can look at that. It's pretty limited, so you want to be careful about that. This one is putting up a pretty good fight. I left this one in so you can see how long these fights can be with these giant trevally. And you can see how frustrating they are when you have a fight that goes on for a minute and a half or more, 2 minutes sometimes, and then lose them to that. Which will happen no matter what size rod you have in this game, or line strength. Let's watch the hook set on this one. That was much too late. So the fish, you have to hook set the hook right away, and it looks like you need to wait. The way it's presented, the fish gets the bait in their mouth and starts swimming. It looks like you need to wait, but it's tricky. So you do have to hit that right away when they take it. I believe here's another example of a hook set that's too late. Because generally you're on levels like this, you're kind of watching the fish's movement to see when to set the hook when they start to turn their body like that. So I was experimenting with when I could actually hit them with the hook set. And we found out you have to get them right away. Boom, boom. And we're looking for that 3-footer again. This is recorded, as most of these commentary videos are, over several sessions that are cut together to demonstrate what this level looks like. This is much like a fishing show that you would have seen on cable TV. This is not recorded in real time and straight up. So to see where the cuts are, I use the fade effect so you can see where I have some time jump on these between fish. Sometimes I make a time jump, and this one looks like I just took the next fish right there. This one does, or that last one did break me off. So even with the stronger but not the strongest line, you can get break-offs. It's too bad. So there's another fast hook set. You've got to have this ready to go. I spent, I believe, about 1 solid hour of real-life time on this GT level, both going to the first couple of days of fishing to unlock the larger rod, and then I think it was another 2 sessions to get myself to where we're caught the 3-footer. I'll try to share that if I can in these commentaries from now on, so you can get an idea of what kind of time frame you're looking for as a new player. And all of these levels are new to me as I play through them. This is not a level that, or a game that I have completed before, so I'm exploring it as you're exploring it while we're enjoying the I'm not sure the music selection there of the steel drums is a little bit Caribbean. When I looked and saw this was in the Indian Ocean, I was a little bit disappointed with the use of steel drums, because steel drums are not really from the Indian Ocean. They have their origins in the Caribbean. There is a time to stop fishing. I left that in there so you could see this took place over multiple sessions. So we've now gone to another fishing session and gone through the equipment selection and everything. I didn't play around with lure choices too much. Generally in this game, I have found that I have certain favorites that I like. The default set is usually pretty good, the default bait. You can change some things around. I try to go for the lures that are the easiest to use and hook fish, so that's why I don't like using flies, because flies are pretty laborious in this game. And I also like to go for easy hook sets if I can. So if there is a kind of bait that, or a kind of presentation that uses a strike indicator like a bobber, I find that I prefer those to your usual bottom fishing. They call it ledgering in this one. That's more of a British UK English term for bottom fishing, where you have different species of fish that have different bite animations. With a strike indicator, you're usually just looking for the bobber and then hit it when the bobber goes down. So if you have the choice for that, I go for easy hook sets if I can. I find I want to get more fish on the line. Gives me more chances to catch those fish, which is also why I go for not the strongest line, usually, because I found that often turning the line up to its max, using the biggest reel that can hold the biggest line, which you'll find that difference too. If you use bigger reels, you have access to bigger line, bigger rods and reels. This one gets aerial right away, so that's one where you have to hook set and then get off the X button. You've got to get off the X button right away there, because if you hold the X button, you're going to snap it on that first jump. I did find that. I found also I mentioned this before, accidentally hooking a fish as you're trying to twitch the lure, either with the direction buttons. You have to use a combination of the direction buttons and the X button, because as you twitch the popper, with the D buttons, you're pulling the lure towards you, so you're creating more slack in the line. So you have to be reeling to take up the slack as you're twitching it. But there's kind of a tricky back and forth play between your left and right thumbs to get the right kind of movement of popping the popper across the top of the reef here, because you're taking in slack as you're popping the lure towards you. And this one is brought in, and that jingle tells you that's what we're looking for. That is our 3-foot giant trevally, or GT. The description of this level also mentions giant sorrel. I didn't talk about this before. It mentions giant sorrel being here and the GT. There is no giant sorrel in this level. I've looked through in the guide that comes through that comes with these levels. It shows you what kind of species are present. Just shows you the GT, and we've not seen any giant sorrel here, I believe. So I think that is probably from an earlier stage of development. So that was not in the final version. Maybe they were going to have giant sorrel here as well, but we just have the GT. Well, that brings us to the end of GT Fishing. If you have liked this series of videos, feel free to hit that subscribe button, of course, the thumbs up button, and I always love hearing your feedback in the comments. You can also hit me up on Twitter, where I am active_ATE. We will see you next time.